One is those here, let me give you this. I think you said this is the West Albany solar station conditions, these are the long road conditions. So we'll use these tonight, as a guide, since we are calling it now.
We'll go through the off the ground. This is first idea.
You know, first and only, depending on how long it takes.
You can see that.
I want you to see this. I was a bit impressed. That was that special. I like it specifically for babies. I typed more management tool into the search engine, and that's what I can help with. So I hope you want to see that. Lawyer management tool. I can get everybody one of these. So, we're going to start the public hearing for the Baldwin 6 solar project at this point in time. So, we do have a quorum, so we're in good shape, and I will turn it over to Paul and Caitlin for to take us through the project.
Thank you for having us here tonight. This is very much the same information that we presented before with some updates. The other thing that we have new tonight, I'd like to introduce Greg from Preston Lansing, who met over the phone in the past few years, but this is the first time he's had a chance to join us here. So we get into the technical questions related to the design of the support that part of the conversation.
A card or anything?
I'm sorry?
A card, just so we can get his identification, for when we put the minutes together.
I'm going to send my boss for a little while.
That's okay, that'll work. Okay, Greg, thank you very much.
Yeah. So in the interest of time and efficiency, I think I'm going to kind of quickly pass through the first several pages on this, but if anybody does have questions and they want me to back up regarding Walden's current and past activities, I'd be glad to go through that. Going to page 4 on the package that I passed out. Again, this is going to be a project with single axis trackers mounted on steel piles. Therefore, the panels will be tilting as the sun tracks from east to west throughout the day, very slowly tracking the sun as it goes from east to west, with the strings or the rows of panels being on a south-north oriented axis. And they'll be mounted on steel piles that will be driven into the ground, no concrete foundation or anything else associated with the pile. Of course, photovoltaic panels, inverters on slabs, and if you look in the bottom right-hand picture, you can essentially see very much what that will look like. And we can, if you're interested, we can point out the locations of those within this site plan as well. And then, of course, power poles and lines, gravel roads, and stormwater management practices. This will be a 4.95 megawatt AC project. We refer to it as 5 megawatt project just because of easier stating that. The components, again, I just went through the components. The developed area, or what we refer to as the limit of disturbance, would be just about 40 acres. The project we anticipate will last for 40 years. Our lease is good for 30 years with 2 5-year extensions with the landowner. The point of interconnection will be right on the side of the road, directly across from where the project is located. We filed our permit application with the state of Maine on June 4th, and we anticipate the start of construction to be spring next year, late spring next year.
And that 40 acres, is that what's encompassed by the fence? What is 40?
40, the limit of disturbance is not only encompassed by the fence, but also the buffer around the fence that we go in. Basically, the limit of area.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the yellow line on the map?
No, the yellow line is on that map, it is the survey area for the National Resource.
So your area is small.
Correct.
The slight blue-ish line that's on the bigger map.
Yeah, the map that I handed out to you today.
The blue line?
Yep.
Great, thanks.
And with that, I'll going to talk a little bit about the environmental permitting process and due diligence that we've gone through.
Fletcher conducted natural resource surveys last fall. That was the weather delineation, wildlife surveys. Throughout, actually, since we started the process with you, we completed the soil survey and the rare plant botanical assessment, and we submitted those reports to the town, and those have also gone into our site law application. The way the site is designed is the project is avoiding impacts to all natural resources. We have 3 significant vernal pools that we apply a 250-foot buffer around, and we're not going to be disturbing within that critical terrestrial habitat around those vernal pools. We're avoiding impacts to wetlands and streams and other natural resources. So, that's a well-sited project that has no direct impact.
And to just kind of reiterate, part of the evolution and part of the conversation with the town planning board as we've gone through this, we have altered the project so that we are maintaining the right of way for what's the name of this road? Town Farm Road. And leading access, there will be no gates or any fences that obstruct any access along Town Farm Road. And we'll be maintaining a 75-foot buffer back from the road on either side. Likewise, we can move the project back and then the 100-foot buffer from Route 113, so that the project, there'll be 100 feet of wooded screening or vegetated screening that will be maintained and left in place. So the project largely will not be visible from Route 113, with the exception of approximately a 75-foot wide corridor where our power line comes to the road and crosses the road to connect it to the power lines on the opposite side of the road with the project. We pushed back both panels and also our staging area from the edge of Beacon Road so that we're maintaining a buffer along Beacon Road, again reducing any visibility to the project. We'll be increasing the width of the entrance to Beacon Road, as well as creating a temporary circular traffic pattern so during construction all vehicles can come in and unload and work around in a circular fashion. There'll be no waiting on Route 113, parking on Route 113, and trucks will simply be entering and exiting. That will be the only activity associated with Route 113 or Beacon Road. And then finally, we've indicated in the drawing where we're widening the entrance from Beacon Road onto Route 113. We'll be moving back the monument that exists there, and that'll be handled in a safe way with all protection so that it isn't damaged. And I'll move back so that it's approximately 15 feet, 10 to 15 feet from the edge of the new boundaries of the road.
And that's shown more in the detail that's been added in the top left corner.
construction is done, and the project is operating, the entire ground will be seeded with conservation seed mix. And the project is also a limited buffer right around the fence of the project, and will be maintained as a meadow area. It'll be mowed no more than twice a year. Generally speaking, the project will really be quite quiet. The only noise that is generated from any of the equipment on the project at all is the inverters. They do make a low hum, very similar to if you're walking underneath a street side transformer that's on the telephone pole. You've heard that hum in the evening, with the exception that that hum would only be generated during daylight hours, and once the sun goes down, it wouldn't be. And those the inverters are all removed far enough away from the project boundary, so that when you're at the project boundary, it would be very difficult to actually hear that humming noise. So, very quiet project, very low visibility project, doesn't require any municipal services at all. And then, when we receive the permit from the DEP, the permit is going to require that we have a fully approved, or we've already included this in our permit application, but a full decommissioning plan. And then before we can go into construction, the state of Maine is going to require us to provide 100% financial assurance for that decommissioning plan. Every 5 years, the state requires the project to update the decommissioning plan, and if any of the market economics have changed, you have to update the financial assurance that goes along with it. So during the entire lifetime of the project, there will be ample 100% of the funds needed to take apart the project. And according to the state of Maine laws, when you do a decommissioning plan like this, you're not allowed to factor in to the budget scrap value. So you can't factor into the scrap value, and so it's 100% of the actual labor to remove the equipment without deducting any of the scrap value of the project. And then the last highlight to bring forward is the tangible benefit in the way of community financial benefits. There's still a little bit of ambiguity right now on how the state law is going to unfold regarding how these projects are taxed in the state of Maine. Currently, there's a tax exemption for projects that are over 5 megawatts. The legislature is actually working on reviewing that. Regardless of what the legislature does or whether or not there is a tax, this project is committed to paying a minimum of $2,000 per megawatt to the town per year, with an increase of 2% every year. We anticipate, and it sounds like from all the information we've had from the legislature so far, that that's approximately where they're going to end up as far as the tax that they recommend to towns, or they pass that projects like this will have to pay to towns. If it turns out that tax policy in the state of Maine is changed to require less than that, we will make up the difference with additional payments to the town. So a minimum of $2,000 per megawatt every year. And if there are tax policies that require more than $2,000 per megawatt, of course we'll comply with that and pay the additional tax that's required. And again, our payments will be increasing by 2% every year. So even if there is some kind of a tax policy that requires a larger amount that has been depreciated, our tax payments to the town, or our community benefit payments to the town, will continue to increase during the 4 years lifetime of the project. Again, one of the things that we do with all of our projects is we invite local education and we coordinate with local schools to come in and visit the project. It's a great opportunity for kids to come in and experience and see engineering and environmental science, hands-on construction. So we really enjoy doing that. That type of activity with local communities. Any questions?
I have a comment. And I learned this in walking another solar farm area, and the engineer was from California. eradicated the forests and whatnot, that we provided the rest and probably, reducing the, habitat life in the area quite a bit, like for more birds and whatnot. We said, in addition to grass, that we planted, small bushes around the perimeter of the fence, perhaps like junipers that would create, a place for animals, small animals, hide and house. And they also planted a lot of flowers that would support bees and butterflies. Think stuff like this would be incorporated into your project?
Most definitely, it's something that we give consideration with all of our projects. One of the challenges with choosing the appropriate type of seed mix and or plants that you'll put in place is making sure that they actually will survive and they don't need continuous maintenance. I don't know if Caitlin would like to make some more comments.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pollinator mixes available currently, and then there are a lot being developed. It's sort of a, you definitely need to pick the right mixes because there are a lot of pollinator mixes out there that include non-native plant species. So I would want to definitely be careful about selecting for native plant species in a pollinator mix.
At the end of the day, one of the most important things is that we're controlling erosion and we're establishing conservation seed mix that can absorb stormwater runoff and create both a safe and ecological project. And so whatever plant materials that are available to use at that time while we're establishing the stability of the soil is important out of the consideration.
I haven't made a study of it, but I'm sure that there's a lot of problems, even on growing season, severity of winter, so selection could be quite limited. But for example, I did learn on a major program one time that hummingbirds are attracted to red flowers. There are certain red flowers that are very weak through their millions of years of development. That these flowers have developed like that, but only hummingbirds can get the nectar from those flowers. Nothing else can. So,
Yeah.
how can they study?
Ecology is a very gray science. There's a lot of nuanced things that we still need to know. I would say another comment in terms of wildlife is the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife that sort of have some sort of a general sort of blanket statements that they made, comments they made on solar projects that have kind of pushed developers into certain directions. So one of the things that they've asked us to do on this project that will be done is leaving a small gap in the fence, the perimeter fence, so wildlife can, like smaller wildlife can pass through more easily. The small gesture to allowing the wildlife that's there to kind of keep using it.
That's a common practice, yeah. So,
Protect the woodchuck.
It's not like
I realize that planting grass is the easy way to stabilize the soil and maintain your ease of access to maintenance of the equipment. Just making a comment to see if you could make an effort to expand upon it. Okay.
Yeah, and clover and there's a lot of species in those conservation species that are actually pollinator friendly species. So
the pollinator makes a bunch of flowers in it as well. And definitely there's more like specific, and so I would expect that during construction, if that's being done with the seawall roads, there will be some temporary treatments that we'll use during construction, more rise and stuff like that, just to get a bend down and work on erosion sort of during construction. And then pollinator things probably come on towards the end of construction, and that's when that would be the flowers.
Just be creative. Okay, thank you.
Any other public comments or questions?
Real quick, what is the overall ending for these channels? The decommission, where do they go? What happens when it's not that way?
That's actually a work in progress, to be honest with you. So the materials themselves are largely in there. So there's no gels or toxins in there. It's glass with silicone wafers in between, a very small amount of trace materials, copper and lead, just making the connection. But primarily, it's silica and glass. And right now, it's actually a business opportunity. There's a number of different companies that are working on advanced ways to efficiently be able to take them all apart. But the industry is actually really quite new, at least new enough at this scale that hasn't really been fully worked out. Right now, if we had to decommission the project right now, basically it would all be ground and then put into a cell type of mix. But we have 30 years to figure this one out.
I will say with the amount of solar coming into not just the United States, but the United States, there will definitely be a industry that's driven to take care of them. The other thing is that they degrade in the power that they put out, but you could also use them on another sort of product, or maybe even use them for a residential project or something like that, because they degrade, they don't really stop working as much.
What's the capacity of this treatment plant? So, I mean, this energy that creates back into that, what is that?
Well, it's 5 megawatts, and statistically speaking, that generates enough power every year for 1,300 homes. We don't directly, but it will be sold into CMP, and our company won't manage it. But we most likely will be working with a service that goes out and finds subscribers who would want to buy it. And I'm sure you've seen the flyer if you get anything out. There are a number of different companies like that projects like this will partner with.
This goes along with the chair, so when I pass on the chair to the person user from now, this will go with it as an incentive for people to take the job. So the public hearing is closed, and now we will open the regularly scheduled planning board meeting for the 12th of August, 2021. Thanks, Paul and Caitlin, for taking us through that. The first issue is to establish that even though we're missing 3 members, we do have a quorum here tonight with Joe, myself, and Don. The second order of business is generally to talk about and approve the minutes from the last meeting, but I don't think that they have been sent out. So we'll have to do that at the next meeting and follow up with David and see where the minutes are. The first item on the agenda tonight is for us to review and discuss the Baldwin 6 solar project that we just had the public hearing. So we'll start that process now. Joe.
I see something we left out of the conditions that we gave along, and that is hours of operation.
Okay.
We didn't specify that the lodgers have to wait until 7 o'clock in the morning, for instance, and with the construction people, you know, I mean, I think we should do that for the neighbors.
Right.
Given hours of operation, I know what people want to add to that, but, I think it should be specified.
Okay.
You know, I know in hot weather like this, sometimes loggers like to start at 4 a.m. Some neighbors don't get up at 4 a.m. normally.
Yeah, so it wasn't something that we discussed and forgot to put in, it's just that we didn't really discuss it in the plan, so we
Yeah.
can do that for this one. Okay.
You know, we normally do an hours of operation, and, you know, it actually came up today. I got a call from Long Road, they're gonna start cutting the trees tomorrow. And that's when I thought, oh, yeah, I gotta call it, look, don't start before 7 a.m. It's the one thing people rejected on that log.
And that's really hours of operation for the, establishment of it, it's not hours of operation.
Right, for the work that's done, for the noise-making part of the operation. Construction, yeah. So the strip cutting of the land and the planking of pipes and stuff like that.
You will add that in. Before we start on the conditions, are there any other, questions or topics from the board or anybody else that, we want to talk about before we jump into trying to address the conditions?
I think from our past meetings, we had two concerns. One was the buffers. The other one is what was the improvements to the intersection of the road. Yeah. I heard that you said you were going to widen it. Have you actually put together a plan for what that actual construction is?
Yes. And again, I guess we want to go for it.
Yeah, to the, top left-hand corner, the,
Okay, right there.
we're only going to, the road right now is probably somewhere between 18 to 20 feet wide. We're just proposing to extend an additional 4 feet to 24 feet of total width. Again, it would be a gravel road, so that might, gravel might push around, might end up being 25, something like that. And that, we are only going to extend that road on, the project side of, and that's just to give a little bit more room on the road in general, and put a little bit more turning radius up in to the project. And at that same time, that's when Paul discussed that we would move the monument, just to make sure it is safe, and it'll be a minimum of 10 feet off the new limit of the road.
I just left two concerns. One is the right-hand turn movement out, whether it's large enough turning radius. And the second one is, you know, adequate space.
We do have adequate site distances, we reviewed that, with, Maine DOT. So we did discuss that with them, with the adequate site distances. This one location is actually better than the other location that we looked at, which is the, old logging road entrance out onto 113. And so we did review that as well. As far as turning radiuses go, we did evaluate the turning radiuses and feel confident that, kind of the larger stuff that we expect during construction would be like a semi, that will come in from, and we do have a list of, some delivery information too, down at the bottom, and how, a few sort of outlines of how delivery would occur during construction. These are still a work in progress, obviously, it'll kind of be construction, will drive that a little bit more even further, but these are sort of some outlines and some guidance that we want to provide to the town, as well as once we get the contractor lined up and get a construction plan, a delivery plan, and all of that.
I'm still concerned about that right-hand turn. Whether you be crossing it, there's not,
Are you gonna turn right?
I don't know if we fully accept that.
I mean, your trucks, are they gonna come from the Route 95 direction and go back in that direction, or are they gonna?
They're going to come
They
in.
might not turn right.
They can come from both directions.
They would be coming from both directions.
I mean, I can see a problem with that, we have to turn out into the traffic. Did you do a auto turn or anything?
Yeah.
To see what that looked like?
Yep, we evaluated the auto turns and felt confident that the sort of the truck that we use is, the auto turn for AutoCAD. And we got it in there and,
Without crossing into the traffic?
yep,
You'd probably be crossing into the oncoming traffic on Deacon's Road, but I can't think that it's a really a heck of a lot of traffic on Deacon's Road.
No, we're not. Crossing into the traffic.
And that's what Warren Road is doing, is they're clearing out before River Road so they can swing to make the right hand turn.
yeah, that's why this comes out kind of manual a little bit more in order for you to make that turn.
Here's my visualization of this, because I pulled almost the equivalent of a semi, people tell me, when I had my, truck, which has a 6-foot bed and, like a 28-foot long trailer, and that all hitched up. I do, when I turn right out of Beacon Road, I do, have to cross over into the other lane, because if I stay tight to the right-hand side of Beacon Road, if I don't pull out into the other lane, I will scrape my trailer on, the stop sign and the road sign. But here's the difference. If you're widening that road from its curve, 18 to 24 feet, and you've got another 6 feet on the right-hand side, the east or south side, whatever you want to call it, as long as the trucks pulling out are starting from that right-hand side, which could cause a problem for somebody who wants to turn in, so they're going to have to wait. But the truck coming out on that side, if they take advantage of that extra space, they will be able to make the turn going west on Route 113 without pulling into the other lane.
Now, when you said semi-truck, how long was the truck?
I think it was 26.
What about 54 or?
Which is the biggest one that we expected to come to. So the largest one that we expect would be delivering the panel. And yeah, I think it was 2 to 50. And the other thing that's helping us on this is actually the angle that the trucks are coming out of the site as well. They're not coming down Beacon Road and having to make that type of turn. They're kind of coming this way, and then they just have to go up a little bit more. So you're not having to kind of jack the truck as much. You're kind of just having to weave out a little bit more. That's why we kind of opened up this area a little bit more, and we'll have to work on that road, kind of shave down to make sure there's not like a hump so the trucks don't belly up in the middle. But that is also something that's going to assist in that turn.
I would like to see this, turn as well. The other issue I'm having there is with the cyclists. How did you compute the cyclists?
So we actually had the engineering company in Tobago come down and do the site distance per the specifications of the Department of Transportation. So do they set up their transit at, I think it's about 3.5 feet off the ground, and then it's turn.
How far back are they?
They're at the edge of the right.
They're at the end of what?
The right way. that looked like both directions. And they were able to determine that they had, 615 feet east site distance and over 635 feet to the south.
And the other thing that relates to the, site distance, when we're out in the field, we noticed that the ground, probably right behind the monument, actually increased steeply. To me, it seemed like that was having to regrade it a little bit to make the site distance work, to make the monument work. With all that looked into, it would probably reduce the buffer a little bit.
I mean, a lot of that will be regraded for the 6 extra feet that we're proposing. So there is a little bit of grading.
But this doesn't rise quickly from that area, well, rises quickly, right? Probably several feet.
Yeah, I think it was about, between 6 and 8 feet, it jumps up there. So it will be shaved down, for the extra width of the road, as well as probably a little bit extra just in order to kind of put that road.
You haven't done detailed grading.
What's that?
You haven't done detailed grading.
We did grade out the right thing.
Have you done it now?
It's not
I'm saying grading.
well, because it's not really, you wouldn't really see it all that much on this because the 6 feet is actually still kind of within the existing, entrance of Beacon Road.
One of the things that's important to reiterate here is that the, sightline distance was surveyed per the main DOT standards, and the sightline exceeds the main DOT standards for entering onto the state road.
That was the two main issues I had. That soil erosion, was there soil erosion plan?
Yes, so we created, the entire soil erosion plan that went to the,
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
I believe it's in that.
Yeah, we sent it with the type of application and what additional copies of documents.
Soil report,
So there's a soil report that's based on, Tech actually went out and looked at the soils on site, but there's also the stormwater management plan, the erosion control plan, operation and maintenance plan.
It wasn't in this book to get in there.
If you want to knock out,
Then I probably haven't seen
All the stuff I just sent out, where would, if it's not in the soil report, what would it, be in?
it's in the site application.
The sidewalk application, okay.
It's like, it's very large.
Yeah, that's 81, almost 82,000 feet.
And there's a hard copy available here at the town that I brought in when I was here last.
it. That was approved by who?
That'll be approved by me,
This is submitted to me, ED is currently under review.
so it's like a lot. So that encompasses operational stormwater, design, as well as construction stormwater design and erosion.
That's all approved.
It's not approved, it's in the process with,
And we would get copies of that approval.
yes.
Question for you, the road that's going up the middle, the new road, what is the, surface of that going to be, is that a gravel surface?
That will be a gravel surface, between like 12 and 18 inches of depth. I believe we're planning on, during construction, might be a larger stone, and then it might be top dress, sort of post construction, make it a little bit easier for.
Normally is an active detection of the entrance with the larger stone.
The larger stone, yeah, about, sort of knocked off.
Middle tires.
Yep, knocked off the center, so that's actually the stabilized construction entrance. That'll be the larger stone. But just in general, during construction, we'll probably keep the stone a little bit larger during construction.
So it tells us
Yeah,
that it's,
a little cheaper, use during construction, and then you
that
can
makes sense.
freshen it up post construction. But it'll remain gravel, it only needs to go up to the inverter and transformer locations, and those need to have permanent access to them. But after the redesign, we just thought it made sense to have that permanent road going this way. or going on the road season, which normally we get right up to the bottom. When the that kind of gets full, either morning or afternoon, so.
Stormwater, what do you see as the improvement, drainage improvements?
So the major drainage improvement, for treatment of the new gravel road will be, vegetation buffers. Not only is vegetation buffers, when the land is pretty away from the road, so while you run off the road and run into like the meadow or the woods and be treated for 50 feet, or I think it's 50 feet in these areas. And those areas are designed, to just be permanently vegetated, not compacted, that sort of thing. But some of them might still be kind of mowed, similar to the rest of the area. In areas where water doesn't flow perpendicular to the road, those are stuck in a grassland swale. So then it's a ditch turnout, and that ditch turnout allows then a vegetated buffer on the other side of the ditch.
So the way I understand it is not having any direct runoff from the site, actually containing with the buffers.
That's the
Then it gets generally recharged back into the ground.
that's the hope,
That's your concept.
that's the design. Half of the project, there's kind of a bridge right in the middle of the site. So this side, the eastern side of the project, we also have a closed dry pond in that location that controls some of the larger roads.
Right. The additional runoff that you would get from basic from the distance of the road.
Yep.
Calculated into that line, 20 years, 25 years storm.
We have to do the 2, the 10, and the 25.
2 to 25.
Yeah. So we evaluated it for all, so that pre-construction is either the same or better than, post.
But that again is still recharged.
There's
There's no direct, outlet to the offsite from that basis. No.
It's all treated on site.
It's all treated on site, it's contained on site.
Correct.
And again, the soil law application has a full stormwater control and is being reviewed by the state stormwater.
And again, I apologize, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
It's a very large report.
Agreed.
Imagine how much money.
I just got it.
I think that is the basic gist of the stormwater report. It has all the calculations, all the plans, all the details.
Yeah, as long as you can read everything that's in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good? Yep, I'm good. Before we move into the actual conditions, is Caitlin, Paul, anything else that you want to go over or talk about?
I think we've covered everything.
Can I ask one favor of you, the project delivery and traffic notes? Can you get those to me in a Word document or something? I mean, because they're so small here, I really like to incorporate them into the conditions, just so that they're there, because they're kind of promises that we want us to build into those conditions.
Understood. We'll provide that to you in the rest format that you
Yeah.
probably do the big, we'll also leave the parts, yeah. Plans with you as well.
What we're gonna do now is we're gonna walk through the, kind of both, the long road conditions and the Westfall and solar station conditions, and talk about each one, and then what, I'll have to do is, go back and, type up the customized conditions, for the Baldwin 6 solar project. Now, the first one is kind of interesting because this says that the conditional use permit shall apply to the leasehold interest obtained by the applicant
successor in interest for the leasehold interest and or project, which is the applicant, on, and then that's gonna get changed to maps 5 and 7, lot 14 and 1. But I wanna ask whether that lot map 5 and 7 and 14 and 1 needs to be changed. Just because, this was not a point in time A, and I don't know whether, and then we changed the site plan. And I know that the site plan moved from one tax parcel of James Land into another tax parcel. It's the tax parcel that is 56 acres, and it wraps around the back of San Juan Pond. So that, we need
Are your tax maps like on the town website up to date, is that the correct?
yeah, they're up to date. So we,
That's what we use.
well, and if you did this file, you know, the map 5 and 7 and lot 14 and 1 before you did, the change in the site plan. Because when the site plan was split for Town Farm Road, the upper portion moved into a small segment of a different, tax parcel in James Land.
We'll go through and we'll confirm, and just confirm that we have the correct one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do though, and if you look at the, like, zoomed out location map, those are the two parcels that are highlighted. It's the two.
Yeah, that'd be something else. It's this parcel right here. No.
No, so this is where it's changed.
Split down.
Yeah, yeah, when we got the land from his aunt, this parcel right here, was one parcel that was about, I don't know, 143 acres or something like that, and then she subdivided that mainly due to the person sitting in front of us, yeah, but this is a separate parcel of 56 acres that we have on the market, and then he took off, so.
Okay.
I believe we're still in the bounds of the original parcels, but we'll just confirm that. and
Yeah.
make sure.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we've got the right,
Yeah, I'll have to put this map that shows one thing left.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually not. Okay. So, the next one, the applicant shall maintain strict compliance with the information submitted to the board on, and then we'll put the date, in there for that, and that's, I think it's, May 24th or something.
27th maybe? It should be on the front of that binder.
It's May 27.
Yeah, May 27th. Yeah, you signed it on the 24th, but I guess. Submitted.
We showed up at the planning board.
Yeah. So we'll fix that date. Now, this is something that you can, help me with. If you look at the West Baldwin Solar Station, condition, we have a bullet pointed list of all of the, documents that go into that, and I believe I have them all, now, because I just loaded in the new map that you sent,
project C 1.00, so, you know, we have that. We have the Baldwin 6 site visit study results. We have the botanical survey results. We have the soil report. We're probably going to need to include the stuff that, Bob, sent to you, the town road inventory 2015, the 2009 state road inventory. That was the documentation that established the status of, town farm road. We have the MDEP cover letter. We have the, site law application of 28 June 2021. That's an old, site map, so we don't need that. We have one from June 10th. We have the conditional use permit, 24 May 2021 was signed. And, I think that's it.
So you're asking for us to make the list?
Yeah, we just need to compare notes on that. Those are all the ones that I have. I
Yeah.
can make sure that there's nothing else that we need in that list.
Yep. We can go back and double check, make sure everything's covered.
Yeah. Okay. And then, there's a clause that any material deviation from the information submitted must be approved by the planning board, including but not limited to the construction plan submitted by the applicant. Right? Good? Okay. Now, this, I don't recall talking about, but I probably because I missed the meeting. The applicant shall conduct quarterly inspections of the solar panel array, consistent with the applicant's submission, and that A, replace any broken or damaged panels in a timely manner, B, provide notice to the town on the number of broken or damaged panels, and C, provide confirmation to the town that the issue has been resolved. So, do you in fact have a plan for quarterly inspections?
That's our typical practice in this type of,
Okay.
behavior standard for us, and quite honestly, expected by most other towns that we proceed for purposes.
Okay. Now, we have this clause, it's number 4 on, Long Road, and number 5 on West Baldwin, and that is the applicant shall continue to have remote monitoring consistent with the applicant's submission throughout the life of the project. Do you actually have remote monitoring capabilities for this? And is that in one of the documents that you provided to us?
It's not an environment that we provide to you. I'm trying to recall whether or not that was in the
I don't recall,
So we're going to need some kind of documentation on remote monitoring capabilities. I just remember, I think it was a slide, a PowerPoint presentation from Long Road, one of the others that it talked about, there, because they have a monitoring station in Portland. All right, so we will need to get that documentation. Okay, there were no public letters of concern, any problems, so we can skip number 5 on Long Road. So we're back to.
Take document from the historics group about the monument.
No. Not that I got.
Was this a verbal conversation?
It was a verbal conversation.
Yeah, we had the president of the Historical Society on the
sidewalk, and, you know, he's fine with it.
The meeting you weren't here, I came and delivered the site law application, and I gave the board a quick summary. I called the site president of the Historical Society, and we spoke about, plans.
Is that Paul Thomas?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
yeah, so we have.
I copied Paul and Sharon on, the email I sent out after the sidewalk, talking about the monument and stuff. I never heard anything back from them that they had any problems or anything.
So, yeah, we had a phone conversation, and in summary, basically, he asked that he asked that, you know, this is where we move it on site and leave it where it is, or close to where it currently exists, but if we, for any reason, could not keep it at Beacon Road, he requested that we move it down to the Historical Society. So, the plan is currently, as we have on the site plan, to just move it and not relocate it anywhere else, and that's the preference of the Historical Society.
And it's our preference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't make more problems for ourselves.
Yeah, we're good with that. Okay, the applicant will provide relevant information about any batteries on site with the ball and fire chief. Joe.
I'm sorry?
Joe.
Well, do you find that battery?
No, I was just gonna say, we currently do not have plans for batteries on site. There's no approvals for batteries on site for interconnection. Should we, at some point, decide to add a battery to the location, we would have to go through new approvals, and we would come forward to the planning board for approval for installing such a battery.
That was what I was looking for right there.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to cross that.
So why does, West Baldwin Solar Station have batteries and do you guys not use the batteries? What's the difference?
We're, you know, it comes down to how you crunch the numbers, and I can't speak to their business practices, but for us, adding a battery on site does not make the project more economically viable. In fact, it makes it less economically viable. And so you really need just the right situation. We have, of our projects in Maine right now, we only have one where for us, on a business operational level, it makes sense for us to install a battery at that project. So.
I think West Baldwin Solar has taken a shotgun approach. Ask for everything you can get, and only put it in your field.
Okay.
That's just an opinion, not a fact.
Well, to that point, too, I mentioned there's only one project we were planning about it. We do have another project where we have not asked for approval for the battery on an interconnection process, but we did include space for a battery in our DEP application, so we could put one there in the footprint should we get the other approvals in the future. So, you know, again, it's a case-by-case basis, but in this project, it does not make sense for us to install a battery.
Okay.
In the case where you alluded to lighting, I mean, what power?
We don't have any lighting associated with the project.
So then, 7 is any lighting installed by the applicant within the leasehold interest shall be pointed downward and inward of the project until the wattage shall not exceed 3,000 watt equivalent. So you're not going to have any lights at all?
No expands, if a technician's come after hours, you know, after daylight hours, they'll bring their own lighting with them.
If you have anything you can wonder or whatever, so like that.
There's no lighting proposed.
What I'll do on that is I'll just say the current plan does not incorporate any lighting, but if anything changes where lighting is to be installed.
Or you may just leave that wording as is, because it says any lighting installed, therefore if there isn't lighting installed, you don't have to add, but if there is, then you do. So.
Yeah. And then, we have the applicant will install a sign on the entrance gate and the fencing on each of the other 3 sides of the project, providing contact information for the applicant, including a phone number to allow members of the public to contact
carpet.
Okay, and then we have the, radio frequency interference. Has anybody talked to, Norm? Has he, mentioned any, problems with his hand radio operation, from, the Mayetta pit, solar panels being operational?
So I talked to Norm, so far no problem. He hasn't come back because he's happy with our working.
Okay, all right. All right, now,
And I assume that you would default to the wording that is on the Westfall one. It looks like the wording on the Long Road refers to transmission error. It's not part of the project.
yeah, now, the only issue with this one is that, do you guys have a slide, of the currently licensed, ham radio operators?
No.
Okay.
That's why I was suggesting that the language as written is a little bit more generic and would apply if we use.
Let me take a look at that. All of which are identified on attachment one of these conditions, and there is attachment one, so we'll attach that to the condition. Now, the only thing we really need to do is that these, mileage, numbers are now wrong. Because this says, 5.1 miles from the inverter, 4.8 miles from the inverter, et cetera. And, with this being so much further east, those mileage numbers are going to change. So, I guess what we need to do there is we need to probably go back to the, either the Long Road or the, West Baldwin Solar Station. I'm gonna have to dig up the addresses of those, ham radio operators. There's 4 of them. And
If you can help us by providing us with the addresses.
Yeah.
We would be glad to go ahead and generate a new mapping
right.
as one of our conditions within a short period of time to send that to you.
And somewhere in the West Baldwin Solar Station application, or probably more likely the Long Road application is where it first came up. I should be able to come up with those addresses, and I'll get you the addresses and we'll do a new map. And we'll update the attachment one. Okay, number 10, the applicant shall submit to the board the final documentation with the landowner that identifies the specific area and the leasehold interest required prior to commencing the project. Such documentation shall be added to the CPP documentation. I'm not sure. I guess that, with, the last two, with West Baldwin and Long Road, there were some continuing negotiations with the leaseholder, is that right, Joe? That,
There was, yes, there was. No more, we're agreeing on that.
yeah. Now, are you gonna have any continuing, leasehold interest, discussions or contracts or anything with J
prior to commencing the project?
Nothing beyond what already is established with the current site plan and with, again, required in the application that's made this paper, we are not planning any amendment to any of that.
So, we don't have any, lawyers with us, tonight. There may be a reason that, David, put this in here for the other two, so, I don't think it hurts having it in, and, if there's no changes, there's no problem. And then you just told us about this, 11, you maintain compliance with the main DEP, requirement for the applicant to carry along to the full value of the condition and review the project, as a permanent condition, which you, clarified for us. And then 12 is, the project is going to be conditioned to the satisfaction of the main DEP, this conditional use permit shall expire.
Mine is suggesting that a condition that we provide the board with, all of the project approvals when received by the state of Maine. And this conditional use permit requires the state approval. It's only valid upon state approval.
That comes under standard conditions.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were at the end.
We're not gonna go through those.
Okay.
I don't think.
Yeah. Well, we can if you want to. These are the standard conditions that are attached to every CUP.
So I just would suggest the condition number 13, maybe, it is, 14, that the hours of operation for the construction of the project be from 7 in the morning till 5 at night, or 7 till 6. I don't know what,
Typically, it's 7 to 7.
7 to 7, is that?
That's standard practice.
But that means you don't turn on a motor before 7 in the morning.
Correct. What's that?
Yeah. Still let the dogs out, you know. Turn the motor on.
Two fierce habits. Hours of operation for the construction, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then have all project approvals, at the state DEP level submitted, and, like, all of the DEP.
Can I request on construction hours of operation that there be the opportunity for the CEO or other official in the town to seek an exemption in case there's a real need? And I can't come up with a scenario, but let's say they're out in the field, they're trying to get work done, a storm's coming, they gotta go another 2 hours. There's somebody in the town that they can call up and say, we need to extend our construction hours for 2 hours because of this event. That's amazing. 7 days a week.
7 days a week. Yeah.
The problem with dealing with people like you is that you try so hard to be compliant and obey the law, and, you know, it's wonderful that you're thinking about that rather than just doing it. You know, I think that's great. I'm impressed with your whole industry, because your whole industry does that way.
Okay. Don?
I just have one that I think.
Yeah.
Close to the whole issue of the permit. I would like to say that
diagram that was provided in the event where large trucks in and around the
Well, I mean, you're the planning board, it's your conditions, but we're not terribly,
I'm not convinced that it's.
thrilled with that, and I'll just explain our rationale, so, you know, our reaction to that. Again, we meet and exceed the DOT standards. According to the state of Maine, we can operate safely out of there. If you'd like, we can provide results of the turn radius modeling that President Lansing has done that demonstrate that full-size truck can go out either side of that Beacon Road without entering into the non-travel lane.
I would welcome to me.
What's that?
I would like to see it.
Okay. One of the conditions can be that he will put it in there.
That's nice.
And in regards to having a flag man, that adds a whole layer of complexity, specifying everything else. Yeah.
Well, what we had talked about was instead of having flag men, we had talked about, I don't see it here in the project delivery and traffic notes, but we had talked about signage being put out on the road during the hours of construction, you know, that indicates that truck traffic entering the highway and things like that. Yeah, and
That was in that's gonna be one of the documents that we list and have as an attachment. That was in the line of sight study. They did a mock-up of where signs would go. And it was a great fun.
so, let's call that out in a, pull it out of that.
Well, it was the line of sight study, it was a traffic study, yeah.
Yes.
Pull up and plug your signage illustrated in the.
Yeah, I'll write it up as to improve the safety of the intersection of, Beacon Road at 113 during construction as detailed in the, line of sight study, signage, about, construction and trucks entering the highway will be placed, before and after on both sides of Beacon Road, along with 113.
That works well.
Okay. So that'll be the signage one. And then, the other action item there is that you're gonna send us the, term of radius, information, so I can, get that, copy me on it, and send it to that, or on, and on. And then we'll incorporate that in the list of things that are, that make up the CDP file. Okay. Folks, anything else? Wes? Bob? Blake?
Everything seems fine. I'm scanning the information, everything is fine.
Okay. So, I think we have some administrative things to do to finish this, but, my feeling is we have, achieved, agreement in principle on approving the CUP. We'll have to take a vote on that, but I need to, consult, the experience members of the board of health. meeting now that we're all here, that it's, approved based on, you know, putting all this stuff together, and we have to wait until I actually do all of the, administrative stuff and putting their customized conditions together before we sign it.
I think we should have the actual documents before we vote on it. Because sometimes when you read through the actual document, you find out, oh, we didn't agree on that. You know, and then
Because I wasn't here when we signed the last one, and, I remember I signed the first one, the long road one, by myself, and here at first. Okay, so I just wanted to see what the process was. So what we'll do is, I don't necessarily, we may need to have you come back once more, but I think it's almost that, you know, we can put this together and send it around, people can look at it and determine whether there are any issues,
That all sounds reasonable, and if we could have a preliminary draft copy, just so that we see, how it's written, and.
Oh, no, yeah, that's what we'll do, when we get all this done, all these moving parts, you know, the copies will go out to all the board members and to you, and, you know, if there are any issues that need discussion, we'll have another meeting, you know, have you do another meeting, otherwise, it'll just be, you know, get the signatures that we need.
Okay, very good. Thank you all for, your time, your effort, and your patience as we work through this process. It's been, pleasure working with you, and,
thank you. Good luck with the project.
thank you.
Yeah, and, you know, you folks have my contact information.
Oh, I'm going to proactively put even a little bit more pressure on us and suggest one more condition, and that condition being that, we provide documentation to the selectmen, for the, community benefit / tax payments.
Yeah. So we'll go back and forth on this until we get all the moving parts right, and we'll just stick it in.
Yeah, I'm thinking in my brain, I'll put all those documents in one sort of folder, and I can share that with you with everything in one place.
Yeah, and I'll, yeah, you have my email and my cell phone, I'm gonna give you our landline too, because when, construction actually starts, you know, whoever you pick to do the construction, I just know that you let me know as the closest home, what's happening and stuff, so we can start to work it.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Would you like us to leave these larger copies with you?
Sure. I'll put them in two extra here. I'm headed out on a 10-day trip on Saturday. I'm on the phone with you. I'll take my computer to a little while and figure all this stuff.
Sure. We'll be in touch.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much.
We are eager to have it done, but we also understand that there's a process, and hopefully you enjoy your trip.
Yeah, certainly will.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Very good, you're right back to those.
All right. the, next item,
Lenny,
yeah.
that's too late for me.
Okay. Thank you, guys. The next item on the agenda was, the, subdivision ordinance, and particularly as it applies to, Firefly Lane. Do we want to talk about that now, or do we want to, leave that for another meeting? Who were the ones that brought that?
Well, I brought it up because, Glenn talked to me, it seems that people are constructing houses on what, when we put in the subdivision, which they are subdividing subdivision again, much as happened over on Route 107. People just, went and did it. And, it seems to be that's what's going on. I don't know. But that's what Glenn's concern was. And maybe there's not an understanding of, the fact that everything that was the mother lot back when the Firefly subdivision was first came to the planning board, everything was part of the mother lot, is part of the subdivision. And apparently there's not an understanding like that.
Okay. So, Wes, are you aware of this? Has anybody come to you about, this, problem with the, mother lot of the subdivision and the building activity on Firefly Lane and that particular development?
There's been several previous conversations about it, and it makes up of how the subdivision is handled, how the lots are numbered, and the basic conclusion is probably an error in interpretation. And when he kind of recognized this, and he's trying to adjust to go forward with a subdivision CDP.
So we're not talking about that.
Pardon?
We're not talking about Lenny.
What are we talking about?
Firefly
Oh,
subdivision.
Firefly. That was before my time. I had no knowledge that was, there was a subdivision there, and there was still some empty lots.
So I think we need to have Glenn here to deal with this.
Okay.
I would suggest that you not issue any building permits for anything that was part of the mother lot of that subdivision without having a conversation between Glenn Haynes and the planning board in front of you.
Okay.
Okay?
I'll put a stop to it now. I have issued a couple, but back in the state of last fall, but I'll put a stop to it.
Because it may be that they were not part of the subdivision. They may have been subdividing the subdivision.
Okay.
That's what the question is.
I'll go through the documents and review it a bit myself and see, what's going on, so I can talk maybe a little more intelligently about it.
Great. I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and, make sure Glenn's here. We'll, try and get to that earlier.
Okay.
And we can all do some information gathering and stuff, before the next meeting. Great, all right. We didn't have anything else on the agenda for tonight except for there's an update from the CEO from you, but I see that, Lenny is here, and I know that, the decision was that you needed to do a, minor subdivision, submission. So it's,
I know we talked about it earlier in the week, and they emailed me, and that was a little slack, and emailed me about blue property taxes, and I don't know if you saw the email or not. I didn't, but, I'm happy that we was not on the agenda tonight, because that was pretty cool with the public hearing and the wall and whatnot, so.
Well,
Let me be honest.
where are you? Is there anything that you want to talk about, or that we can help you with, as you're doing the minor, subdivision, submission?
So since we last talked, I thought with, when to fill up forms to go ahead and move forward with the CUP and the minor subdivision. And then, just get clarification of that, went through the, request and what we needed. I gathered the copies, I provide that with you guys right now. Brief description of what we're looking to do, and, we can be on the meeting next time as well, but, just came, present, our intention, which was the same as the last time, and, that's what we're here for right now.
Okay. Well, why don't you, if you have some copies for us, go ahead and we'll take them, and then, and anything you have electronically.
Yep.
If you send to me, I will, get it out to all the other board members.
Yeah, so as of right now, like part of, I went through with Wes, and, these are, the requests are basically the map, the description of what we're gonna do. I have multiple copies too, so I'll get that in the PDF form with you, so you can share with the planning board. And then obviously, I just have a bigger map of our, that's right now, which I can get in the PDF form over to you guys on the, actual, what the plan is for, the division of that lot. So I'm just looking to take the parcel that we have and divide it into 3 lots. And I think the last time we talked, we have currently access off 107, because we originally had moved on this to think that, we were gonna access one of those parcels off 107. Since we will not do that now, we'll just go ahead and clean that up, and we talked about it last time, access off the Grant Road, so everything would be accessed off the Grant Road.
I think what would also be good is if you could put on here where you plan to put your buildings.
Sure, of course. We'll do that.
Building envelope, okay.
Like dwelling units, you're gonna have to do.
I'm sorry.
How many dwelling units are you gonna have to do?
On Street Ops, we'll probably have, as of right now, we'll have a total of 4 right now. This 8-acre parcel is gonna be left vacant for right now. Yeah, the duplex on 2 parcels.
Duplexes on each lot.
Yep.
So eventually you can do 6 duplexes.
Potentially, there's my understanding that we have to come back, to further divide this beyond where it is, the 8 acres.
Or
We have to present the
dwelling
dwelling
units, maybe try something else.
I'm sorry.
Well, something more than 6 dwelling units, you might have.
Well, so for right now, like, the plan is that 8 acres stays away, and from what I understand is we have to come back. So we're just asking to split it into 3 lots right now.
Yep.
If we decided to do anything, so there won't be any building lots on this 8 acre parcel.
Okay.
You're ready to build one already, one lot's ready to go.
Correct.
And it has a duplex.
Yes, sir. That's a duplex, yep.
So put the driveways on.
So I'll have an easement that comes across over here, we'll go through this parcel that comes off the Grant and accesses over here. We were gonna position the house a little bit lower down here, but we'll shift it up here. Yep. And that'll be it for right now, and this will stay vacant right now.
Great.
And we did something in the future, we can present again to talk about this at a future time.
I'm wondering, well, you don't want to do anything with that, that's fine. But I need to know where the buildings are, where the driveways are. Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. Okay.
Not big easement for the,
Correct. Yep. So the easement that crosses one of these parcels.
My experience with these subdivisions is limited, but I remember that the ones that have come before us, there's some very sizable fees, even for a minor subdivision. Has Wes gone over those with you?
Excuse me, we got to really discuss two deep with all that stuff. I'm in direct contact with Les most of the week. Very accessible, for sure.
So, Wes, that's something that I think, you know, we need to do with, Lenny is go over what the, either per lot or per, structure, fees are for a, minor subdivision.
Yours is $25, which is what he did right now.
So, you have those, Wes, right? Yeah, so anyway, what it is that all applications for a final plan for a minor subdivision shall be accompanied by a non-refundable application fee of $300 per lot or acre, whichever is greater, payable by check, to the municipality. In addition, the applicant shall pay a fee of $10,000 per lot or acre, whichever is greater, to be deposited in the special account designated for that subdivision application to be used by the board for hiring independent consulting services to review the application if necessary. If the balance in this special account is drawn down by 75%, the board shall notify the applicant and require an additional $300 per lot or acre, whichever is greater, to be deposited by the applicant, blah, blah, blah. Any balance in the account remaining after a decision on the final plan application, by the board shall be returned to the applicant. So that is, 6.2, B, in Article 6 of the minor subdivision. So, that's going to be part of the discussion.
So this money is what is set aside just in case you have to hire an engineering or a specialist to examine it further.
I believe that's what it says.
Is that correct?
That is what it says. I believe we have some latitude that we've, used in the past to determine, exactly what is, collected or not, which we can discuss, but I just wanted to make sure that, that the requirements were followed.
Yep.
We'll work with you on this.
So, for the next meeting, I'll just prepare a PDF for the stuff that I use there, and we'll talk more about.
Yep.
All the and all that stuff, and any fees thereafter.
Yep, sure. We'll keep going through it until we get it, ready to go. Thank you. All right, are there any other, topics, that we need to talk about tonight?
I've got an interesting comment. 2 weeks ago, I wrote out the 15th residential permit for the town. I can't find it anymore.
What's that?
Our growth ordinance states that only 15 housing permits can be awarded each year. I've met 15 as of 2 weeks ago, so there's no more full residential houses that can be built this year. Just note of interest, the contractor who told, I gave his permit out, he developed a lot of houses here and there. He says, Scarborough hands out 85 a year, they've got their middle ready. Dallas finds out 65 a year, they've got their middle ready. Winton hands out 100, they're smart, they hand out 9 per month, so it spreads it out a year.
Is that in our land use ordinance? Is that in our land use ordinance, the,
Yes, it's a growth ordinance.
Growth ordinance?
Yeah. So we end up 15 a year.
Have you had anybody come in since then for a permit?
Say that again?
Have you had anybody come in since then?
No. I've been preparing myself for an onslaught.
So,
I did mention, an interesting fact,
But I happen to get a little conversation with Steve Estes, who we all know gets a little hot from a few things. And he says, that's not right. He says, we're stopping housing, how can I earn money to pay my taxes? You know, we cut off of foundation, septic systems, stuff that you put in, but.
so there's a little reality there is
When we stop residential building, there are various contractors, various categories of what's involved in building houses that have been cut off from employment.
So you tell him he can pay his taxes with all the money he's making from the solar project.
But well, that was the problem, you know, the seed, but anyhow,
Okay.
just an opinion. So, just like, you know, we set our limit to 15, which,
If I remember.
in a way, I feel that's good, you know, in my, I've been here 7 years. The first 5, I was writing out 8 or 9 per year. Last year, I wrote 15 permits, but the last one was right in December. Now we've gone a half a year on that limit. So, things are going like this. And part of the object of having this growth ordinance is to perhaps keep all the country coming. So there are forces from outside. So, and there's people moving out of Portland and people coming from out of state coming here.
Do you submit any kind of activity report to the, selectmen that says, you know, how many, construction permits or building permits or anything else you've approved or anything?
The growth ordinance only, reflects on residential housing and families moving in. Garages, barns, sheds, we keep that going.
I just didn't know if there was any record of all the permits that you're approving or anything.
No. I'll give a report once a year. So we're trying to stay on that plan. We knew about this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So this isn't anything new. This is voted on by the townspeople too.
Yeah.
If we was going to change that, you'd have to have another vote and stuff, so. It isn't until we can, you had another way you wanted to kind of go around stuff. We said no. You know, we kind of shot it down.
I suggested to the selectmen that perhaps I write a permit only for foundations, so that they can get it in before freeze up in November, December, then when January comes around, they re-permit for the rest of the house, and they can get going. That's not gonna happen.
Are all these house building permits in the, subdivisions that we have approved, or are they?
There's only, of the Sand Pond subdivision, there's only 3 lots that have permits. And I can only give 4 permits per subdivision, up until October. And then if there's any balance left over, then they're free to get more. So there is restrictions on subdivisions.
So the way this thing works is the ordinance says that before the end of the year, the selectmen will review a number of building permits and decide whether they want to continue with the number that the ordinance states or not. And if they don't want to continue, then it has to go back and be a reapproval of the growth ordinance, which means we go back for review, public comment, so forth. Generally speaking, every year the selectmen review it and vote to continue. So we just go on. Things with increase forms, right? We used to do 11. They went from 11 to 15. But that was what, Joe? That was 7-8 years ago.
That's the one that happened.
Yeah.
So I move the adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much, Matt. Good nice job. Thank you.